We did it.
Now let's share before we get started. Let's share the journey that you just went on because you were a little stressed.
Well, when it comes down to technology and when it comes down to logging into Zoom, sometimes it feels like I am immigrating, back from Soviet Union back into the United States. Sometimes it can be a journey that goes kind of like this rather than a straight line. I am blessed to be with you. I'm really looking forward to this conversation, Ben Fairfield.
Likewise, my friend. Now we go back quite a ways. We were at a former company together, and we both ended up playing in the real estate expansion team space. So we've known each other for quite some time now. I wanted to bring you on here, and I posted yesterday, and I had some people text me like, "Really?" I posted that you're a unicorn. Because you really are this unicorn and they're going to see that today as we have this conversation. Like I told you, this is just going to be the typical conversations you and I have. We're just inviting our Facebook friends to come along for the madness that is our conversations and brainstorming sessions.
That's awesome. I did notice that, and I saw, and I was like, well, I guess I am. Luckily, also, I have three daughters, all under the age of 12. They love unicorns, so we'll roll with it.
Boom. All right, perfect. All right, man. Well, let's jump into it. Now, I know some people watching this know Vlad, and other people may not. So what's the Reader's Digest version of your background?
Reader's Digest. All right. So born and raised, former Soviet Union, came to America at the age of 12, college, grad school, came out with an MBA in entrepreneurship, and started co-founded a tech outsourcing company. This is, oh my God, more than 16 years ago. Then got out of that venture and was kind of bored. So I started flipping houses with a really, really, really good friend of mine. And the market was really hot. We turned it into a factory. We're flipping, 3-4 homes per month, like in the same part of town. Then got my real estate license, probably, for the same reason that a lot of people get real estate licenses, is to source my own deals on the investor side. And then I just fell in love with the brokerage end of things. What I realized is that, flipping was a really cool experience, and it was experience to get me to somewhere. And for me, it was helping other people create wealth. Then the market turned during 2008, 2009 timeframe, and I started working with a lot of investors, helped a real estate fund acquire about 300 doors in Baltimore City. Then started a short sale processing company and the short sales team. And we were number one team in Maryland when it came to distressed properties for years. And then, our previous company, Keller Williams, found me. I had my broker's license. I thought I was going to go indie. Luckily for me, I did not, and partnered up with some really great people and launched our first KW franchise in Pikesville, Maryland in 2013, 2014. Then became its team leader. Those of you who are outside of the KW system, it's kind of like a managing, branch manager, if you will, or CEO of that branch, and took that company from 50 agents to about 400 in less than 3 years. Then we started a second franchise, and then was a part of the group that bought a third, then went into the expansion arena. And that was a really awesome experience, especially for a big agent, because it allowed me to kind of take all of my leadership experience, business experience, and running brokerages, et cetera, and apply them into, what was back then, at least, the new frontier within the real estate space. And that's, when our paths crossed, this is a few years ago. And then, God works in mysterious ways, Ben. We talked about that, and here I am outside of the Keller Williams system and a part of the EXP network, and I'm advising some of the top real estate professionals around the country. No longer selling, no longer running my own team, and I'm able to apply all of my knowledge, training, experiences, mistakes in helping other people succeed. How was that for Reader's Digest?
That was really good, because there's a lot more you could have said. I know that. And I just wanted to give them a taste as to, this is the expert series. We've had some big names on here, and I wanted to give them an idea as to why we wanted you to be on here. Now, I got to tell you a quick story. we both had a coach that was the same coach in the past named Mr. Michael Fleming. And you and I were both team leaders at the time, and we were doing some big things here in little old Coeur d'Alene, Idaho. And he knew how to motivate me, and he kept bringing up this Vlad guy was like smoking me in some of these categories. And I'm like, who the heck is this Vlad guy? Like, what the heck is going on? And then little did I know that our paths would cross in big ways down the road. It cracks me up. So when Mr. Fleming is watching, Mike, we're both products of your handiwork. So, all right, man. So let's jump into it. So you were started off in investing. You got into some of the consulting side of things. Then you got into brokerage management, and we've talked about this in the past. Wouldn't trade that experience for the world. Me either, right? I wouldn't be who I am, where I am today without that journey. I'm grateful beyond measure for that. So, so you find yourself in expansion. We both were in expansion at the time, and we got to have the fun of of expansion and talk about lots of lessons learned, right? So that was an uphill battle, but we were able through great staffs and great people to do big things, which was awesome. And so then fast forward to today, you find yourself more on that coaching consulting role, right? And to the point where, and I didn't ask you about this, but we're launching a coaching company for success. And you've been one of the contributors and one of the founding members, just helping us kind of figure out what we want this to be. So that's your heart right now. So let's talk about specifically, I know that a lot of people watching right now are really interested in a couple of key things. The first one I want to take you through is the team aspect, because your background is seasoned or peppered with success through others, right? You have figured out, I'm not going to say mastered because none of us have in that arena, but you figured out some keys into how to accomplish big things through other people. And we've talked about that before, and we both love that part of it. Talk to me about that. Like, what have you learned in your journey of leverage through people, leadership through people, not around them, but through them?
Ben, look, this could be a 5-hour conversation, right? And I think that conversation would also include a lot of mistakes that I will just speak for myself that I've made along that journey. Here's what I'll share in regards to mega agents and teams. And that, the question that you ask is just such a great question. And the way I look at kind of like the mega agent world today, there's two kind of buckets, if you will, where we as mega agents can improve. And then the buckets are, one of them is what essentially every small business has a challenge with. And what you just alluded to was, okay, leadership. How do you lead through others? How do you lead with others? I'll tell you this, my biggest challenge and my biggest win, and that's something that to this day is it has shaped my life, was hiring someone who was much better than me at so many different things. For me, that person was Tina Beliveau, who replaced me as the team leader in Pikesville and then became general manager of the Legacy Brokerage Group, et cetera. And then that started kind of like my real journey through leadership versus the journey through management. And then there were folks like Teal Kleiss and then many others who like Ben, no kidding, they are better than me in 99% of the things that they touch. So that was my first huge experience. Go ahead.
Hold right there, because okay, I'm gonna have to stop you, because you and I go a million miles an hour, and there is gold in those hills that you just talked about, right? So first, you talked about the difference between leadership and management. I want to come back to that, but you also said something, and I think this is the key, in my opinion, to successfully leading organizations to successful outcomes. And it requires that the leader have no ego or leave their ego at the door. You just said something that would be hard for a lot of people to say. And that's that I'm going to find people that are way better at these parts of the business than I am. And that requires us leaving ego at the door, saying, I'm not the best at those things. And I'm okay with that. I know my lane and I'm going to stay in my lane. I got hired to be in my lane. Now my job is to go find a team that's amazing at the things I'm not amazing at. So I just wanted to stop there and pause. That's a huge component of success through other people.
Humongous. And there's no way that the hills that we took as various organizations could have been taken without the support of folks who are much, much more talented for the role than I ever was. And the way that I took my role is, how do I support other leaders in them succeeding whatever they're up to? See, I think that once you reach a certain level of sales, you're automatically on a leadership journey. And then, by the way, again, it's not just in real estate. I think it's every small business. For me, that line is about $1 million in revenue. I think that, under $1 million or so, you can get there on sheer just sales strength. But when I study organizations that have achieved great success in many industries, to go from $1 million to 2 to 3 to 5, it's a leadership journey. It's a leadership journey for the owners. It's a leadership journey for its leaders.
Absolutely.
So absolutely.
Absolutely. All right. Now, the other thing that you touched on before we continue, you talked about specifically the difference between leadership and management. So we've talked specifically that it's through other people. What else jumps out at you in the difference between leadership and management? Because if you're like me, you've coached a lot of clients who say, oh, I'm just a real estate agent, or I'm just a business owner. I'm not a leader. Well, I don't care whether you want to be or not. You're in a position where you have to be, and you are leading, whether it's good or bad. You are one. What are your thoughts, the differences between manager and leader?
Yeah, the first thing I would say there, Ben, is that it's leaders. I think that management is demonized sometimes. Like, we live in this era of like, it's leadership or nothing. There is management. Management is important as well.
Yep.
Okay, so it's not good or bad, right or wrong, like my good friend Devin would say, but it's like, it's both are important. And here's the distinction for me. You don't manage people, you manage people's activities. Okay, so is there place for that? Absolutely. Look, I manage my children a lot, sometimes too much. Okay, if they're watching, they will tell you that. Okay, and then, however, you lead people. So that, for me, that's a big distinction. And it's possible that when, let's say, new employee starts, okay, for the first few months, you're probably doing more management than leadership. However, when somebody has proven that they can produce results, the best thing is typically to stay away and let them keep producing results.
Yeah.
Like, look, you're the type of person, like, I know who you were in business with, and it was like, when I watched, your previous company with the expansion team, right, the United Group, home group, it was really clear that you had control of the organization in terms of like day to day.
Sure.
Right.
Yep.
And so, like, you probably would not want to be managed.
Oh, for sure. And to the credit of the individual that owns it, he was fantastic in that way. He absolutely saw who I was, and it doesn't make it good or bad, but just how I'm wired. I don't want to be micromanaged, and I've got to believe that most talent doesn't.
That's it. And it's you got to get to that. So oftentimes, like, especially mega agents, this is when I taught hiring courses in our previous company, it was the hiring process was like this. Okay, you look great, you sound great, come on board. And then in the first day, here you go. And so there was no management, and there certainly was no leadership. And at the end of the day, you got to balance both. Are there times of crisis when management is a bigger part, if you will, of leadership? And are there times when it's smooth sailing, so you're leading more and the conversations are more about what is it that you want to achieve rather than what organization needs?
That's a great.
And I think that type of balance sometimes can be really fragile. And for mega agents and any small business owner for that matter, it's finding their own way. Leadership is not a science. So far, leadership has been an art for everybody that I've met with.
Absolutely.
And it's finding your own voice while using the techniques that our mutual coaches have had, right? By reading books, is you find your own voice, and then when you're making mistakes at the very least.
Oh, absolutely. And I love that distinction. I want to make sure everyone caught that I agree with you. Management is demonized, right? A lot of books in the last 10, 15 years have talked about how bad management is and empower people. And yes, but no. Like yes and no, right? So there is a time for both. And what I heard you just say is you have to know when to put on that specific hat. There are times when the people need a manager, the business needs a manager, and there are times when the people need leadership, right? So we have to, as leaders, I think we have to have a heightened sense of emotional intelligence to know, understand, and read those people around us in situations to know who do I need to show up based on what does the organization need. Do you agree with that?
Absolutely. And I think that there are times that a great leader of an organization, when I say leader, I mean like whoever is in charge of the organization needs to have a spectrum, if you will, a range of tools that are available to him or her. And like, for example, I'll give you two examples of when management in my life was more important than, let's say, empowering people. Okay. Phase number one, when I took over our first KW office, my MCA, so the person who is in charge of operations, resigns in my first week, and I don't have a front desk. All I was doing at that point, probably for the first 3 months, was managing. And that was, and sometimes it would be like, can you please go do this? I need this done. Now, the way I said it empowered people. Yes, I explained why that needed to be done, but it wasn't a democratic type of style leadership where it's like, let's do kumbaya stuff. Let's go on a retreat and figure out what we need. No, we're storming that hill. There's, proverbial bullets flying at us. This is survival mode. Nowhere close to wartime. You get it.
Yeah.
And it's democratic leadership is not the best place. The second example I'll give you is when I stepped into expansion world. Five Doors was an amazing organization. I watched it grow up, play a small role in it since its birth, and it was not on a very strong foundation when I took over it as the CEO. And Ben, the first 60 days at the very least, I know for a fact people did not like me in the organization. Like, I know that for a fact. Those who were straight told me. And guess what? It allowed me to actually, through management, increase my leadership skills, because I knew what needed to be done in a crisis type of situation, knew what it needed to be. I knew what needed to be cut. I knew what needed to be scaled back. I knew who had to go. I knew who had to stay, etc. Okay. By the way, that took a bunch of resolve in order to say, like, no, this has to be done this way. Because I think sometimes we, as people who are in charge of organizations, we are actually afraid to take a stand because what if it goes wrong? See, when your back is against the wall, there's nothing like, you're dealing in a crisis. You got to go boom, 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 boom. And then look, a year ago, when I was blessed enough to be advising some of the top folks in the region going through the COVID, and think about all the uncertainty that was surrounding not just the real estate space, but any business and life space. And look, a lot like those that I was assisting at that time learned management, from financial management, managing other people's activities, to actually management of individuals, because we had to create specific activities that had to be done. It wasn't the time to make decisions over a 30-day span. It's time to make decisions right now.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So you made me think of something else there, and I want to get your thoughts on this. So it's been told to me multiple times, multiple places, not my idea. I'm not taking ownership for it, but that leadership is teaching people how to think. Management is telling people what to do. And there's a time for both, to your point. And I'm thinking through your experience taking over the market center, mine was very similar. Within 6 months, none of the staff was still there, right? Wonderful people, a lot of them just in the wrong seat on the bus, and that's okay, that happens. Yet what it made me think of as you're talking through that, and I think people watching, if they have an organization that involves people at any level, can relate to this, that it's premature. And I think a lot of young leaders jump into leadership before management. And it's premature because leadership is teaching people how to think. We can't jump into a new situation in a brand new environment that may be in crisis and just give it to other people to figure out, because we haven't had the time to make sure we're all in lockstep with how we think. We have to take a management approach first, find our tribe, get us into rhythm, right? Teach us to all how to think the same way. Then we can empower the people over time. To your point, that is an earned right. Then we can empower them. That's when leadership kicks in. You agree with that?
Absolutely, Ben. You summarize it really well. Here's one thing that I will add, and this is, this is kind of broaches the part of leadership as a science, if you will, which it's not, but it's kind of like if there's like this line, it's kind of like just like five toes on the other side of that line. Is when I dealt with those situations, the first thing that I did is I went back to my grad school books and I found an article that talked about 5 leadership styles. And I think that if you Google it, anybody Googles it, I believe it was an HB or Harvard Business Review article. It may not have been 5 leadership styles or 5 styles of leadership. And it's a scientific study of which style works better in the life cycle of the company. So, for example, the democratic style is one of the styles. Authoritarian is another one, and then dictatorial is another one. So, look, we're being brought up in a type of environment where whenever you say, dictator style. Right, and this is, I think, this will go to your point of Vlad being somewhat of a unicorn, because I'm not afraid to talk about these things. When you say dictator in a country like United States, and these days, right, you're kind of like, oh my God, like there's no way, like you cannot be a dictator. Yet, what that study showed is that dictatorial leadership style was very important in crisis situations. Mm. And dictatorial is more about management. But see, there are leaders, people in charge of organizations that go through life 100% in dictatorial style. That's the problem.
Yeah,
and yet, if the market crashes tomorrow, okay, and prices go down by 30%, and you have staff, 30 people, and nobody's buying or selling homes, you better become a dictator at that point, or use dictatorial style of leadership, so that you can survive, your company can survive, and those good people that deserve to stay with you actually stay with you.
Wonderful point. Yeah, there's a time for all styles. Again, it comes back to the owner's responsibility, the leader's responsibility is to grow in their own leadership and awareness and emotional intelligence to know when to apply which style.
Absolutely.
Okay. Awesome. Well, so I love that. Next, I wanted to go into mistakes, because you and I've made our fair share, and you have some thoughts about mistakes. And I want to unpack that, because I think that's probably relevant for everyone watching this.
Sure. So, a few minutes ago, I said that there's kind of like these buckets that they go into. And, the bucket that we just kind of like pull the information out of is this leadership component, which again, I keep saying is not just with real estate professionals. Okay, any small business owner, like what we just discussed, it applies to any small business owner. Okay, so there's, when it comes to any small business owners, some of the mistakes are made in the following areas. Leadership, we talked about. Operations, 100%. Okay, and within operations is financial management. Okay, like business development. Any small business can improve with all of that. So I'll put that bucket kind of aside, Ben, and I want to talk about a bucket that's specific to mega agents, specific to real estate, because I think that will add the most value to your audience. And that's the field that I am uniquely positioned to kind of dig through, if you will. So is that cool?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. So here's what I see. And again, uniquely positioned because I've been a mega agent, I've recruited mega agents to our previous company, worked with them on, growing their businesses. Then when expansion, the way we grew is through acquisition and all of that. So, and now that I've been advising, it's really interesting to see, because I have a different view on things. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
All right. So one of the things that I'm observing is that the mega agents are actually not clear about the structure of their team. So look, even the word team is getting diluted.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you ran an expansion team, I ran an expansion team, but when you and me met or spoke, it was very clear to see that it was very differently set up.
Absolutely.
In my real estate offices, there was a team with 30 people or so on it, and there was a team with 3 people on it. There
Right.
was a quote unquote team that met every single day and lead generated and, you know, like talked. And then there was quote unquote a team that were together maybe once a quarter for something. Okay. So sorry about that.
It's not
Not
me
sure what
bugging
happened
you.
here.
It's not me
Yeah.
texting.
So my Facebook Live just went on. So all of that. So the word team is actually not defined. By the way, like I am towards the end of writing a book, a really short book, like a 50-pager on 5 definitions of a team. Okay. So, and it's going to define that so that we actually can talk about different structures. Here's what I'll assert. Most real estate mega agents are running a real estate social club, not a real estate team.
Do tell me more, because I agree with you.
Well, I mean, look, I when I was thinking about this, it brought back my college days. I was a member of an econ club, and we met, you know, once a month around pizza and beer, and you know, we'd have an annual trip to New York City to visit the, you know, the stock exchange, and we saw each other once a month, and then we kind of like, oh, new people are on board. Oh, John did not come in. Ah, it's not a big deal. So
Right.
it's kind of like, you know, it was a social club. I mean, it
Right.
was econ social club. I see the same thing happening in real estate space. You
Mhm.
know, a proclaimed leader, if you will, say, okay, I'm hiring. Suddenly there's like 3 people. They meet once a month. The leader gets frustrated, stops talking to people. Those people leave. New people come on board.
And the cycle
Okay, so
continues.
yeah, and
Yeah.
it just keeps going. Well, look, there's nothing wrong with that. The challenge, and I really actually mean this, Ben. The challenge is that there is this level of frustration that starts occurring on all sides.
Mm.
See, if I wanted to start a real estate social club, I would just say, look, you're going to see me once a month. We're going to buy you pizza. Okay. I'm going to talk to you about the real estate market.
I'm
Okay.
in.
Bring friends. No problem. I understand that some of you will never sell a house. You can, you know, call me. I'll see if I can pick up. And this is going to be our relationship.
Mm.
Yet that's not how the conversation goes. You know, there is this unspoken expectations from the leader of the team, and then there's unspoken expectations from the team members. Okay.
Right.
And then there is, you know, kind of like the progression. You know, what you and me ran in expansion was what I call the network.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. We even had those, you know, names in the titles. And then
Yep.
there is the practice, which is, you know, like a dental practice, if you will. Like when I go into my dental office, I know exactly whose office it is. I know exactly who's going to serve me. I know exactly what to expect. It's boom, 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 boom. It's what the, you know, MREA is about. It's
Sure.
how to go from solo to a really high level real estate practice. And then there's the group, and then there's a sales organization. So there's 5 definitions that I found that when I started sharing that with my advisory clients, Ben, like it was like, you know, one of my old coaches, Ron Potolsky, used to say, you know, Ron,
Yeah. Yeah.
awareness in itself is transformational.
Mm.
And it was like, people are looking at me as like, Vlad, I've been running a social club. It's no wonder people are not showing up.
Well, and
And
that's
then there are others. And here's the thing, and here's what I'll stop with and ask you, you know, let you ask questions or summarize, please.
yeah.
Is oftentimes the mega agent of today is running a small sales practice, which is highly profitable, but is looking up with, let's say, 3 agents and 2 admins. But then there's so much pressure because we award, the medals are given on the top line, not on the bottom line.
Bingo.
Okay. They look to a 30, 50 person network and they want to get there, but it's a totally different structure. It's like a basketball team wanting to be a football team.
Yep.
You need pads. It's a different ball. It's everything's different,
Yeah.
but it's still quote unquote a team. So I'm working through unpacking all of that with some of the folks that I'm working with so that they can have clarity on where they are and where they want to go.
I think that's massive, man. And I agree. I've heard him say that before too. And I love that awareness in and of itself is transformation. My thought there was, and you touched on it, that they're trying to become something with the wrong playbook. And none of those 5 are bad. None of those 5 are wrong. There are successful people in each of those 5 categories. So whichever one most closely connects with getting to where you want to go as the owner of the business, because the purpose of having a business is to get to you where you want to go as the owner, to achieve your dreams, right? It's not to be a slave to something. So whichever one of those 5 resonates with you and lines up with your mission and your vision, then go run that one, but make sure you're using the right darn playbooks. Too many people are using the wrong playbook, wondering why players on the field are doing this and colliding and getting in each other's way. It's because we don't know what we're doing. The other thing I saw is that a lot of people, to your point, they would have aspirations to be like those people they saw on stage. And you actually get to asking them why? They don't know. That's not a good enough reason to do something. And that also will not produce the perseverance and the endurance required to get there. Because what you and I both know is that getting from where most people watching this are to where those people on stage are, there is a ton of pain, blood, sweat, tears, sleepless nights, ticked off people, lost relation. I mean, there's a lot of stuff in between here and there, but we don't see that. We just see the glamour on the stage, right? It's like the iceberg analogy. So I love that you're putting that book together. I think it's absolutely key. My advice to anybody I coach and anybody that we've talked to, similar to yours, is find out what you want. And I've had some people recently, within the last year, completely shelf their business and start over because we identified this and we said, look, you're wanting to become this. That's not what you actually want based on what you're telling me. And like to your point, it's like light bulb, bing, you can just see it light up in these people and they completely restructure what they're doing. And does it change results like units and volume? Absolutely. Yet they also see their family and they're still netting the same amount of money in a lot of cases. Like they're accomplishing their goals, going down a path that's more congruent with who they are and what their desires. So I think that's a huge point, huge issue in our industry right now. So I'm really grateful you're writing that book.
Yeah, thank you for that, Ben. That was a perfect summary. So that's one of the things that I'm seeing. Another thing that I'm seeing is specifically in mega agent space is the mega agents don't know who they're hiring. And here's what I mean by that. You know, we look at ourselves as salespeople because we're in a sales environment. Even our licenses in the state of Maryland, my license, the license that one gets is a salesperson license. Okay, so there's sales. Yet, look, my team and I back in the day sold well over 1,000 homes. I never sold over 1,000 homes. Never sold a house because you can't sell a house like you can sell an umbrella. Okay, so it's people are constantly looking. Mega agents are constantly looking for salespeople. And here's a question that I ask: are you looking for hunters, like those that will go and sell, or are you looking for servicers? And that just that question alone causes the typical silence. And I think that's really great to reflect on, because a lot of retention challenges that happen on a mega agent team actually, in my opinion, come from not even leadership component, although we can all improve on leadership, not even on management, we can improve on management, but actually understanding what I call the ideal agent profile. Is who are you actually looking for? Okay. And most mega agents are looking for people just like themselves to go and shake trees. Well, look, if you have 20 people who are constantly out there shaking trees, fruit may be spoiling. And what a lot of my friends and clients, if you will, are realizing is that they're such a big tree shaker as it is with their lead generation systems, okay, with their call centers, that who they're looking for is someone who can serve and service the client rather than go out and get more clients.
Yeah, and that is so massive, Vlad, because you've seen this too. That is one of the biggest pain points in real estate team and organization building is hiring, right? And I mean, I think of one client right now out of state in the top 50 in the country, massive business person is absolutely drowning and hates what they're doing. Not because they hate the people or the industry, they hate the job, because they've not hired the right people and surrounded themselves with the right people to keep them in their lane so others can be in theirs, right? So again, not to always just echo what you're saying, but man, this is powerful. I'm having these conversations now with some big coaching clients. And this is to the point where we're restructuring entire organizations, starting from the first hire, starting from going back to the first administrative assistant and building up. Not that the people that they have are bad, but they're not the right people in the right seats, right? So I think oftentimes, again, to your point, when they see the people on stage, they're in such a hurry to get there. They don't slow down and go through the process correctly to identify the right people it's going to take to get there.
And then combine that, Ben, with the first thing that we discussed, this, the not choosing the right structure or not understanding that they're in the correct structure that's going to get them to their goals, not somebody else's goals for them, but their goals. Then it becomes a cluster mess. Because they think they're running a team. They have a social club with a bunch of high Ds. The high Ds want something. They're not providing that. It's a constant turnover. Or sometimes it's the other way around. It's somebody is running a network, but is attempting to provide practice type of leadership and sales practice types of management also doesn't work. And so not knowing where you are, where you want to go, combine that not knowing with who you're going to surround yourself with in your nucleus, i.e. your team, leads to a bunch of problems. And then look, it's actually not surprising that we're at this point. To me, it's not surprising. And the reason it's not surprising is because most real estate not all mega agents most mega agents do not own their own brokerages. They're in somebody else's brokerage. And so the brokerage and the sales team look very similar, but they're not. One is in a brokerage, what I call the network, is your clients are the agents in it. And when most people think about a team, you're not serving the agents per se. Agents are a part of the system that produces sales.
That's a key distinction, man. I hope everyone caught that. It's identifying who the real customer is. And you and I ran brokerage the same way. We believe that the agent was the customer. And we're building a coaching company the same way, that the coach is the customer. Because if we have happy coaches and we provide everything they need, then our clients are going to be happy because they're going to get better served. So I think that's key. I hope everyone took that. We have to identify who the actual client is.
There you go. And then, kind of close to that is another trap or whatever we want to call it. Like I'm still working through this as I'm noticing is mega agents discount the power of their environment.
Absolutely.
We're most of us are high Ds. We're entrepreneurs. We're going to storm that hill regardless of how many people are following us or how many people are in front of us. We'll push people out of the way. We're going to succeed no matter what. So we kind of look at the environment as non-deterministic, meaning that we can succeed anywhere. Well, guess what? If I get planted right now in, I don't know, Nigeria.
Idaho. You come to Idaho, man.
Yeah, okay. I mean, look, Idaho, at least it's America. But today, if I get taken to Nigeria,
sure.
I'm sure that, I'll bet on myself, but it's a totally different environment. Or better yet, if I go back, quote unquote, home to Russia, totally different environment. I have to account for that environment. And in fact, my parents took myself and my sister out of that environment so that they can bring us to a new environment here in the United States. And we have totally different opportunities. Molecularly, I did not change when I crossed the border. Okay. However, the environment plays a huge role. I don't want to give it 100%, but plays a huge role in our success. And I think the mega agents, are just so gung-ho, they don't care. And what they don't realize is that, look, if you got to say 30 million, say 100 units, 30 million in your environment, but your environment actually doesn't support your goals, they don't even know your goals. Okay. Then where could you have gotten in an environment, if you were in an environment that actually did, maybe the same level of energy, same level of time, same money would have gotten you to 60 million. And so I think that we go through life as this high achievers, not paying attention to the environment. And for mega agent, I think the most important environment is their brokerage. And the way that I look at it, and that's the way that we started the legacy brokerage group, is we looked at the brokerages as a platform, as a stage for real estate professionals to reach their goals. And if the agents were not reaching their goals, that means that the stage was failing. Yeah, maybe they didn't do what they were supposed to do, but that means that we were not helping other people succeed. Okay.
Right. So you mean you took ownership of the outcome?
There you go.
That's a big thing right there too, though, Vlad. You and I've seen lots of people that shows up and they go, oh no, it can't be us. Can't be our brokerage. Can't be what we offer. Couldn't be our staff. It must be maybe, but just as easily, maybe it is. And as the leader, we have to always look here first. I think that's a huge point you just made.
That's it. And I think that for mega agents is they look in the mirror and don't be afraid to turn the mirror around and ask, okay, what is my environment, i.e. like where I hang my license, where all my people hanging my license. And this is, by the way, this is not about which brand is better, because there's no such thing as a perfect brand. I heard a really good friend of mine, Chris Hart, say this years ago, is there's no such thing as a perfect brand. If there was such a thing as a perfect brand, we'd all be there.
Yeah.
So this is not about that, but it is about that awareness. Okay, what is my environment doing for me? And there's no such thing as Switzerland. Your environment either supports your goals or it thwarts them.
Yeah, you're moving forward or you're falling behind.
That's it.
100%. All right, man. So we've got a little bit of time left, and this is my favorite segment. And I heard a nervous giggle when I told you about this earlier. I have my list of questions. This is our lightning round. Can you tell everyone that you have not seen these before? Is that the truth?
It is definitely the truth. And I hope that this becomes my favorite section as well.
Well, I think we're about to find out. All right.
It'll depend on the questions. All right.
All right. So these are Larry King style lightning round. First thing comes to your mind. We're just going to move through them. There's 20 of them. But this is fun because this is how we really get to know the inside thought works of Mr. Vlad. All right. So here's the first one. What did you do before real estate?
Before real estate, I was in tech outsourcing.
Okay. So what one word would you use to describe where you are and what you've accomplished?
Growth.
Yeah, interesting. Okay. What's your biggest joy in life?
Shark Tank with my kids.
Tell me more about that one. Now, this is we're deviating, but that's interesting. Tell me more about that one. Family tradition?
It has become that. We've been living in South Carolina for the last 7 months. We're actually moving back to Baltimore at the end of this week, and we don't have cable at home, but here in the rental we have cable. So we started, and Shark Tank is on like all the time. So we even recorded like 100 episodes, and probably 3 times a week we're sitting there as a family, all 5 of us, self, my wife, and our 3 girls, from almost 12 to 5, watching Shark Tank. At lunch today, my oldest was talking with her. They were talking about duplication of Peeps, those sugar candy thingy. Yeah. And my oldest said, this is so cool. My oldest said, nobody, something to the effect of like, they probably have a patent on those.
Like every other 12-year-old talks.
Yeah. And my wife and I just looked at each other. We're like, wow. and look, the Shark Tank, the reason I love it is because I'm in business and I love the characters on it. And I love the realness of it because, from Mr. Wonderful, they'll tell the real thing. And the kids, I'm teaching my kids about business because nobody taught me about business when I was their age.
That's a key.
And nobody taught them nobody taught me about money when I was their age and how to accumulate wealth. And here we have a really, in my opinion, very educational show that teaches everybody about money.
Yeah.
Everybody about business.
I love that. All right, here's the next one. What's your greatest fear?
Losing my family.
Okay. What would you do today if you were certain that you wouldn't fail at it?
Wow. What the first thing that came up was writing a book, and it's like already happening. So it's like that by the way, that took years of getting to. So I was scared as crap about doing that. What would be another thing is it would be starting a freedom, like a freedom training, like training people on how to reach freedom, both the mindset as well as financial.
Love it. All right. What's the most impactful book you've ever read?
My God, there's so many of them. I would say most impactful for me was one of them was Atlas Shrugged.
Okay.
By Ayn Rand. I was in my 20s, and that set the course for about a decade of my life and how I thought about myself and life in general.
That's awesome. Definitely impactful. All right. So how does Vlad define success?
For me, it is people around me winning. So the game that I'm playing in life is everyone wins. And so when people around me are winning, that's how I know I'm successful.
And that's a cheap coined phrase, yet I can say, knowing you, I've seen that consistently, and it's not a cliche with you. It is truly you're living that mission out. So I love that. All right. What traits do you see that all successful people have?
Empathy and ability to listen, and not being afraid to tell people how it is.
Fierce conversation.
Yeah.
Love it. All right.
Yeah.
How do you keep yourself inspired and motivated, regardless of circumstance? How do you do that? How do you accomplish that personally?
Anytime that I'm not, which Ben is a lot, is it for me, it's putting myself in conversations like these. So like whenever I'm not empowered, whenever I'm not inspired, I put myself around people. And I'll tell you, the last year or so with COVID and previous stuff that was going on in my life, has caused a lot of stuff happening, and being away from people has been challenging. And what I do now is I just put myself into conversations like these, or with one of my business partners around the country, whether it's Homer and Rachel in North Carolina and Justin, or Mark Anderson in Spokane. Like just get into conversations with a specific question: is how can I serve you?
I love that. Fills up the tank. All right. If you could go back to any point in time and start over, what would you change?
I would. So I'm going to answer, and here's I've been talking about the business time machine,
Right.
Ben. Okay. The only business thing that I would ever change is I would go back to 2013 and buy a crap load of EXP stock.
Oh, that's awesome.
And then right, and then when they came here, look real closely at joining that when they came to Maryland, which was years after that. But if I had a business time machine, look, I've made a lot of mistakes. Have won a bunch of prizes and all of that stuff. Have scars and medals to show for it.
Right.
And like that would be a really cool thing to do over again.
Yeah, we'd be having different conversations. All right, so I know that you're at a temporary place for you've been there for a few months, and you're going to go back to what you call home. So that being said, this may be altered, but on a normal day, you're a high achiever, you're a driver. What does your daily routine look like in a nutshell?
Brother, this is gonna be so this is how my daily routine looks like. That was my youngest. Ben, this is gonna be probably not the answer that most people are looking for. My daily routine is actually very, very flexible. So I used to be the type of person that was like really regimented, and it was a forced type of behavior. I seek variety. I love the flexibility of it, and I've actually designed my life. And I got a lot of coaching from our mutual friend Devin Doherty, right, in California, is living your life, like how you design it. So right now, I'm very, very flexible. And what it does involve is long walks, sometimes on the beach, most of the time by myself, hanging out with kids, like you just saw, they just interrupt me. It is what it is.
That's life.
Reading and having a lot of conversations with people that I love having conversations with. So not much regimen.
I love it. And that's a different season, right? There was a time for the other, and you're just in a different season now. I love that.
I work in spurts, Ben. So there'll be days that it doesn't look like I accomplished much, and then in 5 hours I'll do the work of what sometimes took me 2 weeks.
Sure. And it allows you to go where the inspiration moves you. I love that. So what advice would you give to somebody just starting out? Doesn't matter what business, that somebody's just starting out. We're in a different world than you and I were in when we started our journeys, right? And it's continuing to evolve, and that's probably going to be the norm. So what advice would you give to somebody who's just starting a business venture of any kind?
I would tell them to go and find a Ben in their life. Like no kidding. Like, and it's someone who loves pouring into people, somebody who's achieved great success, and work with them for at least a year. And it may be a free internship. Like, look, I've been able to achieve really high level of success in real estate sales comparatively, and I had to fumble my way through it. And one of the things I look at is that, what if in 2005, or when I decided to go into the brokerage space, which was more like 2008 or so, like, what if I worked for somebody like Ben, or like somebody like who Michael Schiff is today in the Baltimore area, or any Balzerzak, or like the folks that are a really high level of achievement already? What could I have learned from them? Like, something that really strikes me is that, I've been learning a lot about investing over the last couple of years, and I've been studying Warren Buffett. And Warren Buffett, when he went to Columbia to study under Ben Graham, he came to Benjamin Graham, who's the father of like value investing, and said, look, I'll work for you for free. And Ben Graham told him, free is underrated. Right? Or excuse me, let me say it differently. Free, you working for me for free would be me overpaying you. Because what Warren Buffett learned from Ben Graham has helped Warren make hundreds of billions for himself and for others. So, if somebody's just starting out, like, there is almost like no price tag that you can put on working with somebody like yourself, or a really high achiever with a true heart to serve.
Yeah, that's big. And it is another consistent theme of successful people, is that no one succeeds alone. They've all gotten to where they are a little bit faster than they would have without those relationships and the proximity of those people. And anyway, all right, here's the next couple. I got time for a couple more. What's the greatest lesson that you've ever learned?
The greatest lesson was one of my mentors is a really great, wealthy, awesome guy in Baltimore. His name is Neil. And he taught me the power of a plan. He looked at my financial plan a couple of years ago. He looked at the pluses and minuses, and he flat out told me, Vlad, your plan is bankrupt.
Wow.
And explained why. And within the next 12 months, it all fell apart. like the plan itself.
Wow.
And that was a really big lesson for me. I learned a lot about finances. I learned a lot about business. I learned a lot about controlling interest versus passive interest. I learned a lot about how to structure contracts. Learned a lot about myself and how much optimism I apply to people and situations. And I learned the power of an observer, somebody who cares maybe just enough to tell you how it is based on their experience, because they're a couple of miles or 5 miles ahead of you.
Absolutely.
On the same journey.
Powerful. All right. So last question for you. So you and I are sitting here 5 years from today. Where's Vlad? What's Vlad accomplished and what's he doing?
Well, I'll be in Baltimore at that point. I know I'll be in Baltimore because my kids, will be selecting colleges for Sloaney 5 years from now. And what I'll be doing is, God willing, exactly the same thing I'm doing right now, which is working and advising high-level real estate professionals in the Baltimore area and around the world. Okay. And what I've accomplished is I've created, by that point, according to my plan, I believe 10 passive income millionaires by that point. My goal in life is to create 1,000 passive income millionaires.
It's a big goal. And I have no doubt that you're going to hit it, because you are a unicorn, my friend. And I'm grateful for your time here today. I'm grateful for meeting your youngest there in the background. I'm just grateful for all the knowledge that you shared with everybody watching. How does somebody connect with you if they want to connect with you, reach out to you, see what you're doing? How do they do that?
VladKats.com. And thank you so much for that, Ben. VladKats.com, Facebook, Vlad Kats, or Carrier Pigeon.
I really myself like the Carrier Pigeon option.
I prefer that too. That just shows determination and ingenuity.
Yeah. And somebody out there is going to try it. So Vlad, thank you for your time today, brother. I really appreciate it. As always, I learned a ton through our conversation, and thanks for pouring into all the people watching.
Thank you for the opportunity, Ben, to share my journey with you and with your audience. It was really a lot of fun. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks, man. Have a good day.
Too.